Exodus is the second book of the Bible and a story of freedom, faith, and God's enduring covenant. It begins with the Israelites enslaved in Egypt, suffering under Pharaoh's harsh rule. Despite their oppression, God's promise to Abraham remains. He raises up Moses, a Hebrew who grew up in Pharaoh's household but fled after killing an Egyptian. At the burning bush, God calls Moses to lead his people out of Egypt. Moses is reluctant, but God assures him, saying, "I will be with you." With his brother Aaron as his spokesperson, Moses confronts Pharaoh, demanding, "Let my people go." Pharaoh's heart is hardened, so God sends 10 plagues. Water turned to blood, frogs, gnats, flies, livestock disease, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and finally, the death of the firstborn. During the last plague, God institutes the Passover, instructing the Israelites to mark their doorposts with lamb's blood, so the angel of death will pass over them. This final plague breaks Pharaoh's will, and he lets the Israelites go. As they leave, Pharaoh changes his mind and chases after them with his army. Trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea, the Israelites panic. But God tells Moses to stretch out his staff, and the sea parts, creating dry ground for the Israelites to cross. When the Egyptians follow, the waters close, destroying Pharaoh's army. In the wilderness, the Israelites begin their journey to the Promised Land. They grumble about hunger and thirst, but God provides manna, quail, and water from a rock. At Mount Sinai, God meets Moses and gives him the 10 Commandments, laws to guide his people. He establishes a covenant, promising to be their God if they obey his commands. Exodus ends with the construction of the tabernacle, a portable sanctuary where God's presence will dwell among his people. The glory of the Lord fills the tabernacle. 3-minute summary for Exodus. Exodus, the story of deliverance. Exodus tells the story of God's deliverance of his people, the Israelites, from slavery in Egypt. It begins with the Israelites oppressed under Pharaoh's rule. God raises up Moses, who reluctantly answers the call to lead his people. Through Moses, God sends 10 plagues to show his power and demand Pharaoh let the Israelites go. The final plague, the death of the firstborn, leads to the institution of the Passover and Pharaoh finally releasing the Israelites. As they flee, Pharaoh changes his mind and pursues them. God parts the Red Sea, allowing the Israelites to escape while drowning the Egyptian army. The Israelites journey into the wilderness where God provides manna, quail, and water to sustain them. At Mount Sinai, God gives Moses the 10 Commandments and establishes his covenant with the people. The book of Exodus is about liberation, covenant, and God's desire to dwell with his people. It ends with the Israelites building the tabernacle, a dwelling place for God among them. Exodus reminds us of God's power, faithfulness, and his plan for redemption.